The call came on a Tuesday morning in March 2022, and I was standing in my kitchen making coffee when my accountant, Diane, said the words I keep replaying even now. She said, "I need you to come in today." Not Friday. Today. Her voice had that careful flatness people use when they already know something terrible and they're trying to decide how much of it is theirs to carry. I told her I could be there by 11. I hung up and finished making the coffee. I don't know why. I think some part of me understood that whatever was waiting in that office, I needed one last ordinary moment before I walked into it. What I didn't know yet, what I wouldn't understand until I was sitting across from Diane 2 hours later, looking at a spreadsheet that covered 6 years, was that the person who had built that business beside me had been bleeding it dry since the very first month we opened. The business was called Mercer & Cole Interiors. We'd registered it in April 2016, me and my younger brother, Ryan. The name was a compromise. He wanted Cole and Mercer because he liked the sound of it. I let it go. That's the thing about siblings in business, you make 1,000 small concessions and you call it partnership. We did residential design work, mostly in the Manchester area, some commercial contracts from 2018 onward. By 2021, we were turning over just under $600,000 a year. From the outside, it looked like exactly the story we'd told ourselves we were going to build. Ryan handled the finances. That had been the agreement from the start. I was the designer, the client-facing one, the one with the portfolio. I sat in Diane's office on the 3rd floor of a building on Deansgate and she showed me the spreadsheet on her laptop. She had flagged 47 transactions across 6 years. Duplicated payments. Fictitious supplier accounts, 2 of them, both registered to addresses that turned out to be vacant lots. Cash withdrawals from the business account just under the threshold that would have triggered an automatic alert. The first one was dated June 2016. 2 months after we opened. £1,200. Unremarkable on its own. The total, when Diane highlighted the cell at the bottom of the column, was £123,480. I didn't say anything for a long time. And then I found out. Not just the number, I found out what it meant. Diane turned the laptop toward me and I looked at June 2016 again. We had been open 8 weeks. He had started before we'd even gotten our first proper client. I sat there and I thought about the bedroom we shared until I was 12. I thought about him calling our mother every Sunday. I thought about the house in Didsbury. I thought, he knew what he was doing before we even began. I drove home and I sat in my car on my own street for 40 minutes. I called my partner, Gemma, and I told her what Diane had found, and she went completely quiet in a way I had never heard from her before. Then she said, "What do you need right now?" And I said I didn't know. I didn't contact Ryan that night. I needed to be sure, not of the numbers, Diane was sure of the numbers, but sure of myself. Sure that when I spoke to him I would be able to stay in the room. I called him the following morning and asked him to meet me at the office at 2 o'clock. I said I needed to go over some supplier contracts. He said fine. He sounded normal. That is the detail that still takes my breath away. He sounded completely, utterly normal. He arrived 7 minutes late, which was typical, coat still on, phone in hand. I had the spreadsheet printed out. 12 pages, double-sided. I'd placed them face down on the desk and I waited until he'd sat down and put his coffee on the table before I turned them over and slid them across to him. I said, "Diane found these." He looked at the first page. His face did something I don't have a clean word for. It wasn't shock exactly. It was the face of someone who has been running a very long race and has just been told the finish line no longer exists. There was almost something like relief in it, and that made me angrier than anything else could have. I said, £123,000, Ryan. He put the papers down. He looked at his hands. He said, I was going to pay it back. I'd expected denial. I had built an entire internal argument against denial. The "I was going to pay it back" broke something open in me that I wasn't ready for, because it meant he'd been living with it consciously. Every Sunday call to Mum. Every quarterly summary he emailed me with the tidy, confident numbers. Every time I told a client about my brother, my business partner, the person I built this with, he had been aware. He had chosen, over and over and over again, across 6 years, to keep going. I asked him what he'd spent it on. He said some of it was debt from before we opened, gambling debt, which I hadn't known about. He said it had escalated. He said the house deposit was partly from it. He said he'd been ashamed and then he'd been in too deep to stop and then it had just become the way things were. He said the word sorry 4 times in the first 10 minutes, and by the 4th time it had been completely hollowed out. It meant nothing. It was just a sound. I told him I was engaging a solicitor. I told him the business was effectively finished because the operating account, which should have held close to £40,000 based on recent invoicing, held £1,100. I told him I would be telling our parents. That last part was the only moment he showed anything that looked like genuine fear. I told our parents that Saturday. Gemma sat with me. My mother cried in a way I had never seen her cry, not grief exactly, more like something structural giving way. My father didn't cry. He sat very still and he said, "Does he need help?" And I understood why he asked it, and I also understood that the question nearly broke me, because it reminded me that no matter what Ryan had done, he was still their son the same way I was, and that the family table where we'd eaten 10,000 meals together was now a place where we would have to figure out who we were to each other after this. The legal process took 14 months. Ryan signed a repayment agreement. I won't see most of that money. Mercer and Cole Interiors was dissolved in September 2022. Stella found another contract within a month. I started working alone. I've spoken to Ryan twice since. Both times were brief, logistical, about the repayment schedule. We don't call on Sundays anymore. My mother still does. She calls each of us separately now, one after the other, like she's keeping 2 fires going in different rooms of the same house and hoping neither one notices the other. People ask me if I'm angry, and I tell them I was. But what's left now isn't anger. It's something quieter and heavier. It's the knowledge that the version of my brother I believed in for 37 years was, in some essential way, something I had constructed. The trust one gave him wasn't stolen. I placed it there myself every single day, without ever once asking him to earn it. He didn't just take the money. He took the 6 years.